Welcome to the Explicit Measure podcast with Mike, Tommy, and Seth. Welcome back, everyone, after a Thanksgiving weekend. How was everyone's weekend? We don't know because this was pre-recorded.
The Thanksgiving weekend, man, had a Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat. Happy Tuesday.
The rolls were so good. I don't know if this is before or after that.
Yeah, this is a pre-recorded session, so we don't really know. We haven't had any Thanksgiving meals, but we're acting like we have. So we're probably not gonna have.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. Well, I got back to Tuesdays. So we're jumping in today. Today's topic. We don't have any openers. Really, there's not a lot going on because we really don't know what's going on. It's like a week and a half out now. So we're just gonna start today. Today's topic is an interesting one, and Tommy and Seth had to kind of like say, "What do you really mean by this topic?" So this topic came from Michael. This is trolling the Power BI. Ideas.com. So it's ideas.powerbi.com, trolling the powerbiideas.com website. And it's not to like bash on it. It's more around, let's go find some interesting ideas that people are thinking of and maybe highlighting a couple of them and kind of encouraging the community to jump in, find some ideas that you're interested in, or take a look around and try and find some ideas that you feel like worth supporting. Go in and vote for your stuff. This is how Microsoft kind of drives some of their product line. They use this as a feedback loop to tell them what to build. So we'll just start there. Tommy, what do you think? Let's get you kind of going on some ideas. Do you want to kick out some ideas? Start talking about what you've got going, what you've got brewing there in the background?
I got a bunch of ideas, Mike.
Tommy's always got ideas. Tommy wants to make sure that they kill the desktop as soon as possible. So,
I did put that idea in. It's already on the hot category.
Hotly never going to be made.
Well, before we go into the ideas, I mean, ideas of Power BI has been out as long as Power BI has been out.
It has,
if I'm not mistaken.
That
right?
is very true.
No, absolutely.
So,
yeah, I guess we should talk about what is it for. Let's talk about why is it there. I guess that would probably be better before we jump in talk about our ideas right away. So
I agree. Like so the presentations that we did right off the bat, right? This was and still is the way in which you can get your ideas out there to the Microsoft team, and they review them.
Yep.
So if there is a challenge or a struggle that you have in your unique use case, it's a fantastic way to like get that in a position where somebody on the product team would be able to view it. And what happens is the community at large, as they would look at your idea, as it's gaining traction, it's going to, raise higher and higher into eventually a meeting within Microsoft where they're like, hey, there's a bunch of community ideas. People are asking for this thing. We should look at trying to incorporate it into the tool. And I think as the ideas site has evolved, they've, done a job of like starting to add review and comments and respond back to, individuals. But if there's the one way you could take an idea that you have and make it part of the tool, this is the site, and this is how you would go about doing that.
And a lot of the features,
we can probably add some cheat codes in here of like some methods that we know potentially could work. But we'll see how that goes.
Well, awesome. And especially in the very origin of ideas of Power BI and Power BI, I think the majority of the features that came out were from an idea. From something that voted on. It was almost every feature, especially when they were rolling things out in the beginning.
You're talking like the early days, Tommy. This is like when
early days,
year one, year two,
first few years.
Because it was kind of like, right?
They didn't know what people wanted.
And you want to work on the things that are most impactful to people. So if you can kind of push people to get into the community and start like looking at the ideas and finding things that are there, that I think really drove a lot of the original portion of the tool. So to this end, right? We love the Power BI tool. We think it's great. It's awesome. We definitely want you to invest your time helping Microsoft shape it into a better tool. That's also a good thing. So with that, I actually built a report from Power BI Tips, and I'll try and make sure I remember to link it in the description of this video. But the idea is we actually have a Power Automate. It's a Power query online that runs every day. Every day I go out and get all the ideas off the ideas.com website, and I pull them into a single report. So I have a report that's running all these ideas over time, and we can see when they were created and what status they're in as those ideas are out there. So It has a search field. You can do a whole bunch of other cool things. So this is probably actually right. Realistically, this is how I look at ideas on the site. I go here and I go down to the bottom of the page and I search for things and I find things that are relevant. And then I click, there's actually links on the bottom table that lets you just quick link directly to where that idea is on the website. So Microsoft has been changing things on the ideas.com website, but I think they've been making some good improvements here recently to make things more discoverable and easier for you to get at some of the ideas.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, the way it is now, I think because of the influx of ideas, and I think Microsoft kind of already has a general idea where they want to go. Like back in the beginning, it was an enterprise. They were were on the heels of Tableau, like where it was like, how could they ever surpass Tableau? So they really relied on users.
Yeah.
Nowadays, not saying that idea doesn't matter as much, but it does take a little more persistence on a user side to get something really out there in the sphere that's kind of gets traction.
There is even a general rule. You need a certain number of votes to even get reviewed by the product team.
Right.
So I think. Go ahead, Seth.
No, I was just gonna say, and that's like, why don't we intro with a little some cheat codes? Like, hey, what are ways we would recommend that you could get a bunch of votes as opposed to just throwing an idea on the site and assuming people are going to get it right. One of the things we've seen in the past, and why this, I think, portal is such a good one, and I'm glad that they introduced it when Power BI even came out, is if you think about like how Microsoft develops products, they don't know every single use case for their product.
Right.
Correct.
So it's something, we as MVPs deal with a lot because a lot of us are consultants. We're in a lot of different areas. You get to see a lot of the implementation type things. And this is where that feedback loop for everybody in the community is this site. So one of the things we've said in the past is, hey, you're in an organization. The larger your organization, you have an idea, your organization has a need because there's, a way you're using Power BI. This would be a great way to like add the idea and send out an email to have your coworkers like light it up a little bit. That way the community could see that, hey, like there's this new idea, but if I'm looking at the hot ideas or the new ideas or whatever the case may be, and you want to see or be part of improving the tool that could potentially help you do your job better, this is where that site comes in. And I think it's a really valuable and glad that it's out there.
Do agree with that. Very much so. There's a ton of cool ideas, and the report that's out there, and it's the link in the description. There is ideas out here. And there is ideas out here from 2014, end of 2014. So you're looking at like October. There's some of the earliest ideas that you're seeing out on the site.
My favorite actually is, we were researching this and we wanted to pick our favorites. So the title caught me and I said, oh, that would be neat because it's under review. It's the Power BI Designer API. I'm like, oh, finally a designer API, like something to actually, we've talked about this, like modifying the layout.
Totally.
Now, little did I know, writing into it or actually typing into it, and I'm reading it and going, oh, this is a little different because it's Marco Russo from March 27th, 2015, which means that we're not talking about the same thing anymore.
Because it was called Power BI Designer at the time. Yeah.
And literally he wants is an external tool.
Yeah.
Well, because he says, hey, we can open source Power BI. We can connect to other tools and other applications. Like, son of a gun. But the idea, now I might put that idea in for something to modify or do colors outside of the tool itself. If you can do the model, you should be able to do the report theoretically. All that, because all that configuration, I'm already going on a tangent, but every piece of every pixel and every color is part of the zip file. Like if people told you how to actually extract all the details of the metadata, the meta information. So it's theoretically possible to look at the entire layout and the colors and what visuals you're using and to be able to lay out. It's JSON.
Yep.
So anyways, that's a designer API I want to see. Not necessarily one from 2015.
Well, there's also some ideas that have been out here for like
forever.
That's
still under review. That's still under review.
Still under review. Yeah, still thinking about it. Not sure yet.
Even though Tableau Editor 3 is out, but under review.
Under review. I would say though, there is some other ideas out here that are kind of interesting. Connectivity to Google Sheets. Just recently released though, November 2021, it's out. That was an idea that is under review, but it has been out since 11/4/2014. So that was another. Basically, as soon as Power BI Desktop came up, you're like, "Oh, I'm going to connect to it with Google Sheets right away," which is funny. It was like, "Yeah, probably not going to happen right away."
The since we're kind of rolling into like, hey, the usefulness of the site, like, are there any recommendations you guys would have around like the site maintenance
that's a great question.
Interacting? I do see one of the things on your report that makes it very clear is I'd actually like to see it rejected, right? Like, you can't have something under review since 2014 or 2015, right? Like, either reviewed it and you're like, hey, great comment, but no, we're not going to do it. And that's okay. Right. But like, otherwise it just becomes this catch-all.
Yes.
Of things that it's not really under review anymore.
Well, you look at how many ideas are out there. If there are ideas that are everything out there on the site, minus what is completed, they completed around, based on my report right now, from what it says on the website, it's around 1,100 or so ideas have been completed. But that's out of 25,000 ideas. That's a lot of ideas completed.
It is.
But you look at like all the ideas that are out there, and granted, right, there's a lot of repeating ideas. There's a lot of things that need to be grouped together. And I think that's probably part of the reason that's hard for program managers at Microsoft to like get through is how do you weed through 25,000 ideas and group them together such that these 15 ideas are the same thing, and then you can accumulate all the votes for that. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of data engineering to kind of like pull all this up together. You need people to do this. So that's actually...
If only they had like some natural language processing thing that they could put this data into a report to.
Oh wait, maybe they can. Well, what I would say though is,
and if it worked,
what I think what would be a good idea here is, so you asked about like the website, right? Searching has gotten better on the website. It got kind of rough there for a period of time, but it's gotten a lot better. You can now click through the top ideas, the hot ideas, the new ideas, and completed ideas. So you can kind of like go through and scan and figure out what things are happening out there. But one thing I would say that I think that would be very helpful here is I need, as a user using this site, right? If I'm searching for something, or if I find two ideas that I think are similar, I should be able to tag other ideas in the one with the most votes, right? So if I find one like, let me give you an example. One of my ideas that I think would be very relevant here is I have one around hiding or showing visuals based on a measure calculation or some kind of button. Like, not button, but buttons can do that now. But like, I need a programmatic way that I was just looking at someone's email the other day, and it was saying, hey, if I select one item in this table, or if this column has one item selected, I want to be able to show a visual. If it doesn't have one item, I want to hide the visual. So this also does a good performance thing for reporting, where if you programmatically show visuals or not based on measure values, or have a hide show property based on a function, you can actually reduce the load to your Power BI analysis services engine or the data models. You can actually reduce that much lower because visuals that are not shown do not go request the data. So you can actually do, Phil Seamark has a great blog on dax.tips on how to do lazy loading visuals. So you can have visuals on the page, and after you click the button, the visual will appear. So the visual lazily loads, so you can have a couple elements on the page that are instantaneous and fast, and then these ones that take a little bit longer to load, you can have people click a button and then wait for that to render. That also delays the time for when you're going to run all the queries, because as soon as the page loads, it's going to run all the queries. So you may not want to have everything running at one time. So kind of an interesting idea there. I think that'd be very relevant. And there's like 4 ideas for it that are very similar in nature. Those should just be one big idea.
Well, Seth and I independently, actually, I picked this idea for Seth, but he found a different one. Is the custom fonts.
Oh, so, that's been a huge topic.
There's a huge one, and there's multiple of those too. No, I agree. What they used to have, which I still don't know why they took it out. I know there's technical reasons, but I think the killer feature that I loved was the categories. They used to be able to say, like, if you wanted to browse ideas, you could say admin, desktop, DAX, visual, kind of thing.
Totally agree with that one.
They were kind of tagged or labels, whichever one you want to call it, but you could basically filter based on what umbrella does it fall under, which was huge because they had a bunch of admin ones, like, hey, build an API for this, or have a UI for the more tenant settings.
I would 100% agree with that.
It's very hard to find that
now. I chuckle, but at the same time, we've talked at nauseum about on this podcast about like teaching lay people about like in lay business people who aren't familiar with Power BI about the different parts of Power BI, right? Like so it's no surprise that there probably was confusion or like mass overlap in maybe those categories, and the stuff in them wasn't as valuable in trying to figure out. So I could see that.
But I mean, I do feel like, I mean, if you're talking about like, again, thinking about where the PMs own spaces of the tool, right? There's a PM for Power Query. There's a PM for adminning. There's a PM for the service. Like, I would think
separate the service.
That's a good point.
I would think you would want to at least try to let the users. I mean, pick general buckets at least initially. That's fine, or maybe categories with some subcategories. I don't know, but just some way you can kind of group things together to kind of like hone in on a particular topic.
Like, there's no way service should compete against desktop, especially they're different teams at Microsoft.
Agreed.
Like you said, with different PMs.
Yep. I want to see the hottest ideas in desktop. I want to see the hottest ideas in whatever, like a specific area. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that would help out the PMs sorting their ideas a lot better on their end as well. Again, it's hard to go through 24,000 ideas.
Yeah. But I get it. At the same time, like there's a segmentation problem here, right, as well.
Yeah.
Which I think in general, before we get into like some of the ideas that we've dove into and find interesting that we're going to talk about is I would love to see that the site get updated more frequently, because there's a lot of stuff in here that if you're paying attention to the Power BI blogs and you know what the releases are, like there's some stuff that's already been deployed.
Yep.
However, like there's also stuff that somebody's Johnny on the spot, like they own something and they're like, yep, updated today, like it's been released, and we just encountered that tonight, so there's parts of that ownership maybe where there needs to be that constant feedback, because if the site's going to be super successful, you need to have the back and forth between you're appreciating the fact that the community is offering all of these ideas and matriculating them and voting them up, that there should be the we're gonna make sure that how we're interacting with those ideas is up to date as well.
And I gotta admit, I do miss the romance of when a new the romance is true. The romance of like when a February 2017 desktop release, and you're like, what is that? Like, and you're like, you realize it came from the ideas. It wasn't on any roadmap. It wasn't from a conference. Like all the things that they've been coming out with are awesome. Especially November is a huge win, but nothing out there is like, I didn't know that was going to happen, because everything's already been documented what they're going to do, which is good and great. But I do miss the times we're going, holy crap, they have bookmark. What's a bookmark? Like, then you're learning about that for the first time. So there was a romance, and then you realize it's from an idea, and then you're like, any of these ideas could be reality. Oh my God.
Any of these could be real.
Yeah.
That's my idea.
That's my idea. Never mind.
My idea. I'm always too late to the party. That's for sure.
But that was exciting to see, like, especially what was planned, because right now they're following their roadmap, to a T. Obviously,
why wouldn't they? They have
to.
But I would. But again, it also boils down to too. I think the team has grown a lot larger to be able to handle all the number of people that the development levels. I mean, there's a lot of code we're talking about now. Your downloads from the desktop. I mean, you're pushing files that are like 380 megabytes now. I mean, these are quite sizable program files that you're building. This is a legit sizable application. So I think it's resourcing, right? Where do we put all the resources? Where's going to make the biggest bang? Do we spend all of our money on goals, or do we figure out how to work deployment pipelines? I don't know.
Well, it seems like they're doing
all about resourcing.
Awesome.
So with trolling, right? We take it into the fishing, right?
Let's fish a little.
Throw a bunch of lines in the water. Like, what are some of the fish that you've caught, Tommy?
Oh man,
give us a fish. Just give us one fish, and then we'll react to it.
Yeah. So I think one that would be the most impactful at this time is a subscription to personal bookmarks for other users.
Interesting.
So because our company uses the bookmarks pretty extensive, like personal bookmarks, but they want to be able to share that with users. So they want to be able to say, like, hey, Jim created a personal bookmark, and he wants to share that with the company or a subset of users. So to me, I'm like, that right away, like our next training at our organization, that would be the first thing that we'd be talking about, and that we know we see a lot of usage. And again, I'm a lot of these. I kind of realize I a little balance between like what's impactful for users, so like service in a sense, consumer based, but then also like the workflow of an author. But out of everything that I saw, this was the one I'm like, oh yeah, that would be neat.
So
just because I've heard the need for it.
So this is the idea that Tommy has made personal bookmarks, and you want to kind of promote them or publish them out to a broader audience. Share them.
Just share them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's interesting.
So,
I'm thinking of how that seems like a pretty like doable feature. Like that's something that would make sense. Like you would have groups of bookmarks or share a collection of bookmarks with people or something along those lines.
Yeah, because we can see comments, and people use comments at our company.
True,
actually, really actively, and they use those as personal bookmarks. But it's not a really great discover feature.
And comments, whatever you select in the report, if you select something in the report and you comment on it, it makes a bookmark. It makes a bookmark for you. Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing, but it's if I want to get back to it. So then it basically keep it in sync. Like, hey, we have our sales op guy, and he's in charge of personal bookmarks for all the different sales teams. So something like that. So like, and I'm in the Northeast region. Well, Jim's creating, to use Jim again, Jim's creating the personal bookmark for Northeast. So now I can see my, the quick sales from it. And then also that visibility for the author that helps. It's almost like that's like an ideas.power BI for the author, where if I see there's a lot of bookmarks being used, then I can say, maybe we should build a report around this.
Scanner API
doesn't do bookmarks.
No. Oh, no.
There's nothing.
That would be nice to capture that.
The activity log does bookmarks, but it doesn't tell you what was bookmarked.
Got it.
So it just says Jim created, bookmark was created.
Got it.
But for me, bookmarks and comments are my view into seeing what people are actually using the report for. That's my real usage
like that.
right now.
I like that. That's good.
Because it doesn't tell me anything if 5,000 viewed my report, but if I know 3,000 people are doing a bookmark on this particular bar chart because they really want to see that subset, well, maybe we do a pre-baked calculation around that. So that's what I was looking for. That's kind of my number one here, at least starting off.
I think so. Oh, man,
I'm getting excited about that, and it's not even a reality.
It could be your real idea, Tommy. It could be a real idea.
So all these ideas you're hearing today, vote them up.
Vote them up.
What we should do is our next few podcasts would talk about these ideas as if they were real.
Drop it.
Like people are like, what? When was that released? Actually, it's never been released. Please go vote it up on the Ideas website. It would be really good for you to do that. So, Tommy, mark your idea that ones that you've talked about, so we know to put it in the comments on the.
It'll YouTube. Be all of these are going to be in the anchor in the
live podcast descriptions or the video description. Cool, Seth. Grab me one of the ideas that you think is relevant here. What's one that you like?
Sorry, did you throw that my way?
I did. I was like, is he reading the ideas right now as we go? Like,
no. Seth's internet's been flaky lately.
Oh,
so
okay. I punted it.
Computer voice mic too. What do you think? And I'm like, that had to have been to me.
All right.
Relevance, right? Like,
sure.
We picked the things that we'd love to most see.
Yeah.
There were definitely a few around source control.
Oh yeah.
It's a real thing, especially when you're doing embedded. When you're putting reports out there for clients or customers to consume. It becomes a real challenge in the BI engineering team when you have a lot of influx of requests and changes and fixes to manage multiple people working on different aspects of potentially the same report and understanding what changes you're actually deploying, because there's real issue around even utilizing SharePoint, or a version and a process. When you put manual steps in between things, you're always opening the door for mistakes. And
agree.
We've encountered many issues many a time where one person is doing in one change, they deploy it, and then something gets overwritten.
Yep.
Right. So if as teams scale, and I'm sure in larger organizations as well, right? The more hands on deck, the more hands in the same reports. There's just a massive need for the ability to clearly, have a a method in which teams can work together and understand what changes are getting pushed and deployed. Now, there is a path. There are some really smart guys that have started to put together a whole bunch of things. We've talked about this.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff.
I got a guy who's diving deep into it, and there's an avenue for us to do this, but it'd be really great, right? Like if that was part of the tool, like you look at our last conversation, or I should say a conversation a week or so ago around paginated reports, and where and how we interacted with those. It was Visual Studio. It was all source controlled, right? Like you constantly knew, and you were deploying things in branch or whatever the case may be. And I think, what I'd like to see is the tool is getting that big. Like it's an enterprise level tool. You're playing with enterprise level things on the back end. And I think I'd like to see that get some more traction.
Yeah. I like where you're going with that one. And I think that idea bodes well with some other one. I just kind of started Googling some more ideas off of there. Another one that's really good is like the idea of co-authoring, right? I really like the experience. I worked in Databricks. Right. Databricks has Jupyter Notebooks where I can co-author something together. Just announced Power Apps is now allowing co-authoring. So like
with GitHub,
you get it in Excel, you have this stuff in Word. So I think this is the trend where Microsoft is going to go with a lot of the report development in the server side. And I think this is a really good idea. I would like to see that.
Yeah. So you're actually spot on. So
of course I am.
They have okay. And first off, why do I give you the fodder?
You
man?
Just walked right into that.
Unneeded fodder.
Walked right into that
gasoline,
one.
And I'm just like, have some fodder.
Yep.
Goodness. And first, let's be clear. Power BI is not an enterprise level tool. Tabular Editor 3 is an enterprise level tool.
I would agree with that. 100%.
Sans Mike Carlo.
Says Mike Carlo.
Yes, I know. That's what you've said 110 times.
I lose it every day.
Well, so to your point about the Power Apps and the collaboration.
Yeah.
So they've actually done an excellent job, and where they've been going with it is there's a Visual Studio Code extension for the Power Platform where I can actually unpack an MS app file and basically edit any parts of it, see all the functions, the exact dimensions and pixels, and then pack it and publish it back.
This is for Power Apps. That's Power Apps, right?
This is for Power Apps.
Yeah, exactly.
What they're doing now with the GitHub. I sound like my
GitHub.
grandfather. The GitHub and the Facebook
and the and the YouTubes.
Yes, and all the Power BIs and the Power
BIs. The PBICs.
The PBICs. All these youngins. What they're doing with GitHub now is really you can actually edit, like basically connect to a GitHub repo that has multiple Power App files into it, choose a directory in that GitHub repo, and edit it in there and basically push that back. So you can edit in Power Apps. You don't have to download anything and have that seamless collaboration.
Cool.
And again, but the reason I say that is the way you can extract a PBIX or PBIX is generally the same because everything's available within the file, obviously, but in a readable format.
Yeah. So pre highlights, right? Like I'm going to start promoting the crap out of a couple of guys and individuals once we get a solution stood up to do this, because they've already solved this and they're already doing it.
Yeah.
The problem is like it's a very
this is a little
out of band kind of way of interacting, and there's what I'm suggesting is there should be a much straightforward way in which people can access and do something.
And could you imagine collaboration and what you're trying to edit the file, all of a sudden the Power Query changes?
Or the visual starts moving on you underneath your cursor or whatever.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm trying to change the year-to-date formula.
Co-authoring.
Yeah.
Like I see Mike's name come in and he's like,
delete.
That's the wrong calculation. Yeah.
How many bookmarks are you making in this thing?
I see a comment on the DAX expression like, I wouldn't use that. And it's like, well, screw you.
Now you're fighting about your Power BI files.
It's just the thread of argument. Like I wouldn't use a filter inside the calculator.
Yeah, that's
well,
not.
I would.
That's poor design.
Who owns?
It's going to take 13 milliseconds more. I don't care. I'm using tablet editor. It tells me you're slow.
Oh, that would be the ultimate, like just like a snob move. Where like I put this in for performance analyzer, and I noticed that it's 13 milliseconds quicker. So we're gonna do it my way. It's like you. Go jump.
Just go make some more visuals, please. Thanks. Go jump into Charticulator for a bit here.
Nobody wants to hear that. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Mike? What is your...
So one of my ideas, I'm going to pick on one that came back from a long time ago. This is the option to use either light or dark mode in Power BI Desktop. Most of the Power BI, or most of the applications that Microsoft produces, all of them now, you go to Word, Excel, all of them have light and dark modes and different themes that go along with the entire application, not just the report.
Stop, time out.
Yeah.
Are you a light or dark guy?
I'm a dark guy.
I'm a dark guy. Tommy,
naturally,
I know what you are.
Yeah.
See, you got 3 fans right here.
Tommy, I believe. Then why was your presentation yesterday all in white?
I don't know,
because I didn't use the Ignite theme. So
yeah, see. Wah, wah,
okay.
wah.
You gotta spread the dark love. Anyway, go ahead, Mike.
But I agree. But like, so this whole like dark mode thing has been a while. Developers love it. You know, I use dark mode on Visual Studio Code. The original earlier in desktop development, the settings menu bar window was all black with white text. I felt like that was really good. It highlighted the things that I needed to highlight. I think now with the gray on lighter text now, it's okay. It still doesn't do it for me. I'd like to still have that dark theme, the dark mode with it. And I hope that just aligns with whatever else is happening inside the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem. I hope this gets adopted to that, as you know, like all the other Office products do this. This one should too. So,
and they took away our custom ribbon. Like the ribbon
quick access
was
toolbar.
So much better. The quick access toolbar, and the way the ribbon was before, less clicks, definitely. Now they're like, we'll be about PowerPoint except for colors. And I don't even care if it's a dark mode. I just want some contrast. Like I cannot stand. I've gotten used to the gray on white or white on gray, but just build some contrast.
You've got to get used now to like the new format pane, because now there's going to be like gray on white backgrounds.
And you really, now it's a white and gray on a slightly more gray background.
Bring me just dark mode, please.
Give me some dark.
Yep.
That's it.
Give me some dark mode. So that's one I'll definitely throw my hat in that one. It's been out there for a while. It was there. It's now less dark. It's more light now. So let's get some real dark modes on these things.
Go easy on my eyes.
I know, right? So Tommy, it's over to your bucket now.
So one quick one that I know it is coming out, but to create multiple apps in the same workspace. Vote if you see that, vote on that. Let's get that moving. But the one we've talked about this one, so I was actually interested to see this one, and this is from 2 years ago at this point, is field formatting report wide, which is basically the idea of we have columns and measures that we want to be a certain color on every visual across the report. So if I'm showing you sales, if I'm selling you USA sales, I want that to be this certain color blue.
Gotcha.
And I always want it to be that blue.
I'm gonna look up this feature here. We often have. Yeah.
And then someone mentioned, and then there's another one like consistent colors for dimensions and measures.
Yeah, that's binding. So right now the colors are bound to a data color palette.
They're bound to the order index. They're bound to the order.
Yes, and it's loosely tied. It's loosely tied to all the items in a different column. But sometimes you'll get weird behaviors where, these different dimensions are not tied to a specific color, and when that happens, you get sometimes weird results when you refresh a report or add some new data or something adjusts. The colors can readjust themselves slightly.
And with Q&A, with the logistics schema, and with the theme files the way they are, I don't imagine it would be a giant leap because it already knows what measures are in there. You should be able to know, like the logistics schema kind of auto creates itself, so to speak. You don't have to like write that from the ground up.
The linguistic schema, you're saying, right?
I can't say words.
I know what you're saying. So, I'll interpret for
lingo.
I'll interpret.
The lingo.
This is Tommy, the interpreter for you. This is Tommy talking about the linguistics schema.
I'm not even going to try it again. So
say charticulator.
Charticulator. Hey, say go. No.
All right. Tommy's got other choice words.
This is what happens when we do a podcast at night.
That's true. In the morning. We're a little more punchy here, I think, this afternoon.
A little more punchy, but it should be not a large leap from a coding point of view to kind of pull up a measure because it's already available in that schema and say, okay, just apply this hex color.
Yep. And I think,
and then every time
I would go even further than that. If you were doing that, I would actually ask for the ability to drive that with a theme file. So allowing the theme file to pick this column, these data types, and define that stuff for you. And to your point, Tommy, have it auto-generate, or we can go through and say, here's the column of information I'm going to go do. Generate me colors for this column, and you can kind of do some finessing with that. But at the end of the day, you get like a list of values and colors that go along with those values, and you can just have it work. Kind of thing,
right?
There's
and maybe
I'm guessing there's some interesting challenges that come across that, because what happens when you get like a new value in that column that doesn't have a color? How do you pick a color that meets the range of colors that you already have? Color theory is kind of hard. Being that I've done some of the theme generator stuff, getting a collection of colors that work well together, it's kind of an art, but it's still math based. So like we have people building theme colors on Power BI Tips website, and we have the color gallery. So there's a lot of colors that are just, but the color gallery is totally random. Like we have no clue. Like you start scrolling through that thing, you just get random color palettes all day long, and you could scroll for days because there's tens of thousands of color palettes in there, which is super cool. But it would be very helpful if I could say like cool blue, and like palettes with cool blue came up, or being able to kind of somewhat group the colors together. And I have to imagine there's some sort of math. So if you're a math wizard and you know how to group colors together, whatever, reach out to me, hit me up, because I'm looking for someone to figure out how to pull disparate color palettes and things together so we can kind of group them in a way. I have some theories on what may or may not work, because it's, if you use like RGBs, there's numbers based in them, and you can do some kind of number based stuff.
Yeah, I have a whole folder on my browser of just data viz like tools for that. Because we create themes pretty frequently, but to the point, even if it's not part of the theme per se, because you really couldn't do that, because if you imported that theme in another model, throws everything off. But you could say, hey, choose a measure, choose a color, and you can almost do that in like the natural language, append it or bind it to the report, not necessarily the data model. But I think that would be something huge, where then one, you can have that one versus the other, have it really stand out. And it also really helps with order too. So
agreed.
That's what I'm voting for. Needs votes.
You talk color. The one thing I don't understand, and I understand like some of the technical challenges of a lot of things, but what I don't understand is fonts.
Fonts.
Like why there aren't more options for fonts, and why do I think that's important? Because I've spent the last 2 years in embedded, right? Like predominantly building reports for others. And when you're in that space, you are always going to, as a tool, lose to other tools or other solutions when you can't match what the application is doing. Like you have these systems or these front end pieces that have been designed by UI UX people. And if you can't at least get close to what they've chosen and built an application around, guess what? They're not going to change their application. They're not going to use your tool, right? And it is something as simple and stupid as a font that will kill the solution. So, like, what's irritating to me is the tool's been out for as long as it has, and we still have the same default fonts or limited selections, and I guess in some respects, even worse, options in some objects like a text box more so than in a different visual or something, which just creates discontinuity between wanting to create certain things. So I'm a huge proponent of like, give me some custom fonts, let like broaden the spectrum a bit, or allow the gates to be opened as far as utilizing fonts that are out there.
This is another interesting topic, because if you think about what fonts, fonts in general, fairly straightforward, not a big deal. But if you think about, when you're doing these things, there are some legal restrictions that go around fonts. So companies have to, so there are some legal implications go along with this. Companies have to own those fonts. You can go off the internet and you can rip off fonts from people, but you may not have purchased them. And so there actually is in some cases, you could be violating licensing agreements based on what fonts you purchased or not purchased. So, I could see how Microsoft's kind of playing this, right, a little bit, where they're like, well, we don't know if you've purchased this or not, so we're just not going to give it to everyone. The another option here too around fonts is kind of like a script, a custom script that you're adding to Microsoft's stack of colors or stack of code. So there isn't, you have to be very careful too that you're not allowing malicious code to be injected inside the fonts themselves into any kind of reporting.
And I agree, and I like what you're saying about like don't open the door to like full custom.
Agreed. No,
and I would concede
I think you should,
and that's it.
But I agree though. I mean, in no way am I trying to say like no, we don't need custom fonts. I think 100% there needs to be a mechanism for allowing in certain applications. If you're embedding things, yeah, for sure. There's got to be a way to let you shove in custom fonts, or at least give us a mechanism that allows us to inject those things ourselves. And you can add custom fonts now, but the downfall of this is every computer that's going to consume that custom font has to have the font on it.
So
and that's why I don't recommend it.
Power Query Online or a PowerPoint Online, right?
I lost your comment, Tommy. What you said? Why isn't it the same as Power?
2 things. So use the same fonts available if you were to create a PowerPoint PowerPoint Online.
So here's some tricky stuff, right? You can use them. If there's a list of fonts in PowerPoint Online or Excel Online, there's actually more fonts available to you in those environments. You can use all those fonts and have fairly good confidence that all those fonts will work in Power BI Desktop on most of those other machines, because people have already installed the software on their machines to run those applications, meaning those fonts are automatically added to their machines. So odds are, if you're not a Mac user, you'll probably have the fonts you need. The downside is when you have a fallback, it will fall back to Arial. And so the default fallback font is not very appealing. Right. And so if you take the risk and add the extra custom font, you now need another mechanism. And I did some testing on this to even try and, I do a lot of embedding. So I was trying to embed a font in the browser, in the application, and then render the iframe window that would then render the report. Well, it's blocked technically because the Power BI report runs in a sandbox mode or in an iframe that does not let the iframe have access to the fonts that are inside the application. So I've even tried to like hack something together to make it work. It's just not there yet. So I think there's just, to your point, Seth, I agree. We need to have a better way of getting custom fonts into stuff.
Yeah. Or just expand the list to what's more universally acceptable.
Pull in all the fonts from all the Microsoft products.
Right.
I agree. Right.
Yeah. So I got one that I actually want to see
Tommy.
if you guys.
It's not your turn.
It's not your turn.
Oh no,
you're jumping. That's okay. I did talk a lot there, but
you are. You are always right, Mike. So.
No, I'm not. That is for sure not the truth.
Let everyone be known.
So I'm going to pick another one here. Add more stages to the development pipelines. And this is going to be more of a bucket thing, right? In general, deployment pipelines need more features. I'm thinking there's a whole bunch of ideas around that one in general. I'm not seeing a bunch of like really strong development yet around that, but I think we're getting better at seeing some more things from development. But I would say, development pipelines would be, I like the idea of them. It helps you manage a lot of things where you can version things. I want pipelines to be able to walk forward in changes and backwards. So I want to be able to push a change forward from one environment to the next one. And I want the ability to roll back a change in case I screwed it up. So I want that in deployment pipelines. And I think we have dev, QA, prod. Not every environment is only going to be able to handle 3 things. If this is just APIs moving things through a pipeline, I should be able to have as many staging environments as I want, or 3 development ones and then 1 QA one. I should be able to push this code wherever the heck I want and let my process internal to my company dictate how many environments and where the environment data is coming from. I think that should just be something that you just have. So I think that's a good idea. I think that'll drive much more adoption in the deployment pipeline space in general. And now, but deployment pipelines, I don't know if this is hooked up yet, but Seth, you were exploring the backup server. So, when you connect your Power BI data set to back up on Azure Blob Storage, there's some cool stuff that you were discovering with that works pretty well, and it's stinking fast. And well, why doesn't deployment pipelines hook into that? Why aren't we doing backups on data models or backups on reports on a blob storage container behind the scenes? I feel like that's like
utilize that, right? So some of the same conversations that we're now opening the door on, right? Like, so what we found is at that Azure connection into your Azure Data Lake storage, like a 7 gigabyte model takes 5 minutes. A 23 gigabyte,
it's huge.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so why doesn't so some of the things that we're talking about, can I create a model in one workspace, load it up during the day, move it into the other workspace and restore it in hotspot my model, as opposed to having these really fun escapades where we're doing
downtime in production,
total model refreshes over a weekend or late night or something like
that. No,
but along those lines, and all these different pieces that we're trying to figure out, why don't you build that in deployment pipeline?
Yeah,
like it makes sense
to put it there.
Yes, you know what, we're going to have a bunch of changes that we're going to want to push to production. Can we
just hot swap the stuff out?
The thing that just goes, okay, push that to prod. Right?
Yeah, I think
we have the capability.
The potential for deployment pipelines is absolutely, it's higher than goals. Right. But they just apparently all the votes got taken away by goals.
What?
No, I think the potential is high, the ceiling is incredibly high. It's just we haven't seen, again, what the actual people using it would really need. So, but I agree with like the ability to what we all hack now when we're doing dev to prod, or as we call it in Power BI, it's really find solutions for. Yeah, anytime
there's we don't hack anything. We just make better solutions. Right. Yeah, I agree with that comment.
I found a solution for this podcast. But like anytime, like to Seth's point, what you did when you're finding an answer at 2 a.m., like I figured it out. When it's like that 18-step process, but it works. There's a better way.
I like it.
All right.
But, if you're
gonna throw down, like, if you got 2 or whatever, like, let's throw down the last ideas without a ton of discussion. But like I have a couple I want to do, so if we do a quick round robin on the other,
we'll do rapid fires now. Just tell you what your idea is and just hit up, what the idea is, and then describe it real quick, and then we'll move on. We won't discuss every single random one.
Do you remember ideas you could only vote at like 3 at a time until it became completed?
Oh yeah, they limited the number of votes you had.
I hate to bring that up. Yeah, that I think needs to be brought back, but they got to update it. So because you can vote on infinite now.
Oh, can you really?
Yeah, you can vote as many.
There's no limit now.
Okay, there's no limit.
Well, then there goes the cheat hacks we had earlier.
So I got 2 real quick fire ones. One is actually this one is probably a more interesting one, but is DAC calculations at the visual level of reports.
Yes. Yep.
So I thought this was really, I think you picked this one too, but it's basically I can write a formula based on the behavior of a visual, which I thought was incredibly interesting.
This is something you can do.
It's kind of what InfoRiver's done.
Yes, it's done what InfoRiver's done, and this is also what you can do in Charticulator and Deneb. Yeah. So there are custom projects where you can do in visual calculations, do additional math after the query has been returned, which is way more efficient, if you ask me, in my opinion.
And then my personal one that I think is be better for training my users at a company who want to learn more is create a DAX measure in an MDX cube, which is basically that analyze in Excel. So right now, if I connect to a Power BI data set in Excel, like let's say it has no explicit measures, I can't use the pivot table. I can't drag an implicit measure on, nor can I create an explicit measure.
Okay.
I would have to write an MDX.
Gotcha. No one's going to write MDX.
Right.
Not going to happen.
Right. So that ability that I can, at least in that Excel report, not write back to the data set.
Yep.
But do that. One, I can train users, hey, this is what DAX is. If you want to see total sales, this is how you do it. Or from your own self-discovery.
Interesting. So, I believe, doesn't Excel always connect to Power BI with the MDX queries anyways? That's always been MDX. Okay. That's the limitation there.
It is part of the roadmap, I believe, the ability to write a DAX measure in the Excel file, but I think they need to expedite that because I have a lot of use cases for
expedite.
I'm going to say expedite.
Okay,
I'm going to stick with it.
I like it. With this. The act of expediting. Yeah, I like it.
My logistics tell me expedite.
My logistics.
Logistics.
This is great. This is the best podcast ever.
We're never doing an evening podcast again.
This is amazing.
Actually, I would say this in the morning. All right, so those are my 2.
All right, Seth, fire off some that you like.
I'm only going to go with one, and that is if you think about like what is the black box button for a PBX file, like it's not responding, it's not closing, like end, like task manager end task. That is what I want. That is what I want for data set refresh.
That's got 1,000 votes.
Oh my god.
We have right because
essentially
everybody's had the moment where you're like, okay, refresh. No, don't. Oh,
yeah.
Don't. Oh, I forgot to modify my view. Like it's gonna take 4 hours, and I forgot to push this last change.
Yep.
Like,
my gosh.
People have found like if you hack it, if you like kill it, and then like
kill it 3 more times,
right? Because there's the
retry logic.
Retry logic, right? That'll kick through.
There's a blog article on that.
I want the black button. I want the black button that says stop. No, seriously, I want to kill the data set refresh right now.
That's a good one. I like that one.
I didn't mean to press you first go, I don't want to refresh it. Then you click, oh, I don't want to cancel it either. Crap. And you're stuck. Yeah.
kill it all, man.
And
that's a universal problem, man.
Cool. So another one I have on mine is I like this idea. So this is a little bit more of an obscure one. There is the Microsoft Office 365 Planner. There's a lot of data in there that I'm using Planner for just things across the team.
Sure.
Ideas, I just kind of, thinking through things, I just kind of jot the stuff down. I would like to have some of that into a Power BI data set. I think that would be a relevant kind of like another little feature add. Make it easier for me to get that data in there as well. So that's one of my other little ideas there. And I guess, I have my last one here. Connecting data flows to Excel's Power Query. So I don't know if that one, is that actually out yet?
No, that's not out at all.
Okay, because I'm just checking, because that one, I feel like that one, so a data flow allows you to write Power Query stuff to make a table that's just materialized in the service.
It's just a table, yeah.
I want to go get that table via Power Query inside Excel. Just reuse the table again. So I may be using it in a data model, but I also may want to go grab that same table. Maybe it's my company master data. This is I think this is.
I need to audit this.
I need to audit this or whatever. Like I'm going to build other logic or something around it or whatever, something around that. So I think there's got to be something there too, where we could have another richer piece around just being able to integrate that and make that closer to what the Excel world is. Because shoot, if I'm going after tables of data, I'm not doing that in Power BI. I'm trying to do that in Excel. I'm just going to.
Load it in Power BI, then export it.
I'm using page-named reports. Right. If I'm sharing it, I will. But if I'm going to just muck around with data, I'm going to Excel. I still use it. Yeah. That's like my go-to for everything.
Yeah. Well, everyone's task now is they load the data flow into Power BI, then export it, and then that's how they audit it. Because they need to share with someone.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
And one, I don't know if this is an idea actually on the ideas place. So the one more I'll throw in there. I was talking with some people. This was on the user group earlier this week. There was a lot of talk and chatter about how do you measure data quality as it comes through your data pipeline? What is good data quality? Just defining some stuff like, hey, we in Power Query, we write a column and we say this is an integer, this is a number. I would like Power Query, and it does this to some degree, it errors out and you can go back and look at the errors, but I feel like I need like the ability to apply an assertion to a column. I assert that this column will be an integer always. And if something else comes into that data load process where it's not an integer, and maybe this is a data flows feature, I don't know. But I think there's some validity to automating the process of data quality and being able to score columns on data load that give you percentages that say how good this data is that you can load into your data process. And the reason I'm saying this is because we talked at length around when there's a BI team, who owns that data? Where does the data quality come from? As a BI team, I may not care, and maybe traditional IT in some respects, do not care about what the quality of the data is. You said, go get this table. I got the table. I moved it into a data model. I made the columns that I needed with measures. Done. Here's your ticket back. I'm complete. Instead of thinking through the process of like, wow, I have a whole bunch of text values with it. Wow, this whole column's blank. They really wanted this column that's all blank. There should be a way of applying rules to data columns and notifying people when this stuff is having problems. So I think if you want broad adoption of Power Query, if you want to get people to love that stuff, start building data quality checks and measures and balances out of the box, automated systems for yourself. I think that would be really cool.
You just brought up a really interesting point of where this could work. It wouldn't necessarily be in the query editor, but if you actually look at data flows and what you can also do with a completed data flows, you can use some machine learning and artificial intelligence to be able to do like the recognition, the clustering, all that stuff after data flow is loaded, and it gives you the score. Have you ever used that before? Like that additional part of the data flow?
The score.
Where you could do all the machine learning and all the AI.
Yeah.
to a data flow afterwards. Not necessarily the tech recognition.
Yes, no, I play with that part. Yes, correct.
So theoretically, you can create a machine learning for data quality where after it's loaded, it can give you that score. We're not even and go a step further where not just like this should always be an integer, this should be text, but that the unique values were, hey, shouldn't these be grouped together? This is company ABC LLC. This is company ABC LLC.
Yep.
I think they should be in that type of data quality, because with the machine learning that's out there and that's already out there. So having that score report or data quality check could be absolutely integrated in data flows.
I totally agree, and I think this is where a lot of my thoughts go around with this. Is there are automated ways. There's actually open source technology around. So in Databricks, you can actually apply assertions to columns and have those assertions auto validated for you, and it'll give you like legit a data quality report out of it. And it's you define these columns, you say what data is in them, and then it goes through, and as it loads the data, it'll say, hey, I was able to load 1 million records into this table. Well, here's another table that I found 700 errors based on your quality metrics. And so you now have a process where this is also something that is a bit more automated. If you talk to like Talend or other data engineering programs, they have some of this stuff built in where you're able to make routes of data, and you can route the data different directions. So this is part of other tooling options. It's out there already. So like this is not a new idea.
And I think I'm getting most excited because I don't think the barrier to entry for Microsoft to do this is high. Just add another option to their machine learning on a data flow.
Sure. Yeah.
And just build something very custom for data quality.
Put another button instead of data and machine learning. Put another button for data quality. And you pick the columns. You pick the quality of the data you want, and then you just let things run. And you could do if it in a data flow, you could have every single step in a data flow measuring some level of data quality. And now you've got a nice, easy to look at report. You could click on each data flow and see what is the quality of this data. This is the point though. The point of this is not so I have to manage it. The point is people give me data to consume. Like I hate consuming data from Excel files. People do it all the time. I just hate it because people put crap data in there and modify things. I'm going to load it, but at least let me have a report or some metrics I can push back. I'd use even goals. I'd add goals to your data quality. And then
use case.
Oh man, it's getting better as I go. I would add goals to my data quality metrics, and I would push those goals down to people who own the data. This is genius.
And instead of Power Automate with the Slack message or Teams going, what the hell are you doing to update your contacts? No, but I mean,
this is gold. Microsoft, this is gold. I don't even know if you're listening to this podcast. You probably ignored us.
You better be listening.
If you don't know if that's an idea, why isn't it an idea?
Why isn't? I'm gonna have to write it up right now.
I don't know how you're gonna make what we just said into a written format, but
I'll reference the podcast episode. I'll be like, see podcast episode, minute 45. Michael's great idea. Just do that. Data quality.
We're gonna look and we'll go, wow, got 3 votes.
No votes ever. I like that.
I guarantee you that would be part of our BI process if that was a thing.
I would think so too. Well, Gil's got a great example for Excel.
Yeah.
He does another one where he's talking about in data flows, he's looking at all the historical loads of data, and he's going through, he has an Excel file or some kind of Power BI model that goes through and assesses all the changes in data quality over time. Yeah. Same principle,
right?
Just implemented a little bit differently. He's already got it in there. Why isn't this everywhere? This should be a thing.
This is what's going to propel the podcast. That idea right there.
We're not going to make money off of it on this podcast. I mean, that's nothing.
That was never the idea.
I don't think this thing's propelling anywhere for that matter.
It's costing us money.
Well, with that, we've burned through a good long 58 minutes of your time yammering about ideas and things that aren't even real. This is not even real stuff yet. So I hope you've enjoyed this fictitious podcast between Tommy, Seth, and Mike around things that aren't even real. We could be talking about pink unicorns, and maybe people would even listen.
They're real. They're real.
What are you talking
about? Website.
Tommy, our only request. Sorry, I'm messing everything up. I'm getting all jittery now. Thank you very much for watching and listening to the podcast. Our only ask, as if you've heard the podcast, if you like it, you laughed at this, thought it was fun, please share it with somebody else. We appreciate your support, and the only thing we ask is, send us a like, send us to someone else who you think may enjoy the podcast. Tommy, where can you go hear the podcast or watch it?
Well, I'm just glad we're not rusty after the Thanksgiving break, really. But if you like the podcast, you can listen on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe, leave a rating. If you want to join the conversation live, you can do so. just subscribe to Power BI Tips on LinkedIn and YouTube. We have our episodes scheduled in advance, so you can basically ring the bell to notify you and subscribe and join the conversation with us.
If you really miss our voice that early in the morning, please register, please subscribe, and we'll bother you at 8:30 a.m. every day.
Join you for your morning coffee.
Exactly. Well, thank you all very much.
My initial idea for the podcast was coffee and calculated columns.
It was a good name. It was a good name.
Okay.
So it's a good thing we landed where we did.
Exactly. Love it. This has been like our best episode yet. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you on Thursday.